House impeachment managers will present more of their arguments Wednesday as the second impeachment trial for former President Donald Trump continues. The first day of proceedings saw senators debate the constitutionality of the actual trial. Attorneys for the former president tried to argue a trial would be pointless, considering Mr. Trump has been out of office since last month. But House impeachment managers said a trial is valid under the Constitution, and lawmakers ultimately voted to hear the case by a margin of 56 to 44. For more on this, I'm joined now by CBS News legal contributor and former federal prosecutor Keir Dougall. Hi there, Keir. It's good to see you. So attorneys for Mr. Trump are arguing that the former president was exercising his First Amendment rights during his speech on January 6th when he told his supporters to, quote, fight like hell. What will the defense need to do to make that argument hold as this trial progresses?
Well, I think one of the things they're going to need to establish, first of all, is that the First Amendment has any role here. Many legal scholars believe that it doesn't. So you can be impeached for conduct that is otherwise legal. It doesn't require a crime that would then implicate the First Amendment and whether or not the First Amendment then prevented the government from prosecuting that particular crime. We're talking about a political proceeding here where I think the first thing that President Trump's lawyers are going to have to do is establish that it even applies. Take an example. As a private citizen, someone could swear allegiance to a hostile foreign power. It might be offensive to, most or all Americans to do that, but that would be protected by the First Amendment. For the president to do that while in office, that would undoubtedly be an impeachable offense. And so I think that's the first hurdle that Trump's team is going to have to climb.
Well, Democrats argued for witnesses during former President Trump's first impeachment trial. Keir, can we expect any witnesses to testify this time around, especially when some of the witnesses themselves are lawmakers?
Yeah, so I think it's very unlikely that we will see witnesses. It's theoretically possible, of course. The Senate impeachment rules that were established for this trial permit a process to bring in witnesses. I don't think we will see them. We've already, we know that the House managers invited President Trump to come testify. He has declined that invitation. I suspect, I believe that we will not see witnesses here.
Well, 67 votes are needed for a conviction, but many Senate Republicans have signaled that they will vote to acquit. What arguments and evidence could we see Democrats lay out over the next few days as they try to sway members of the GOP?
Right. So, I think what we will see is argumentation over the core question for this article of impeachment. Did, in fact, the president incite an insurrection? And so on the House manager side, I expect to see what we started to see today, which was a video sort of putting the different aspects of their case together in context, in a presentation, in a timeline. And so I expect to see them argue that President Trump's continued advocacy for that the election was stolen and that it was illegitimate, even though there is no evidence to suggest that there was widespread fraud in the election. I expect the House managers to focus on that, how that created a sense of grievance, how that led to the things that were being said on social media, and then led to the speech on January 6th, followed immediately by the crowd, a mob attacking and defiling our Capitol. I expect the President Trump's team on the evidentiary side, as we move to the merits, to focus specifically on the one part of the speech where President Trump invited the people in that crowd to peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol and have their voices heard. I would expect them to repeat that phrase as many times as they can possibly repeat it as a way of showing that attempting to show that the actions of the mob were independent of the president's words and his other actions. That's where I think the next part of the trial at the core is going to be fought over.
So, Keir, if the Senate does vote to acquit, are there any other measures lawmakers could take to hold Mr. Trump accountable for the Capitol riot?
Sure. Well, there's always the censure, which is the sort of unwanted second cousin, at the family gathering if you are in favor of and believe that President Trump should be held accountable. It is, frankly, at this point, it's probably secondary to the articles of impeachment themselves, but there is that additional step. As we heard in arguments, in opening arguments about jurisdiction, the impeachment process itself is political, but it does not prevent subsequent indictment, trial, potential conviction, and criminal punishments for the president if a prosecutor chose to pursue a case like that. So those are the sort of the remaining vehicles for accountability that are currently out there.
Well, Mr. Trump is the first president to face impeachment proceedings after leaving office. What kind of precedent, P-R-E-C-E-D-E-N-T, could this trial set when it comes to impeaching officials long after they've left their positions? Because it's been pointed out that when you look at the Senate itself, it is a body that largely operates on precedent.
Right. So I think what this vote today means is that the Senate, in a more direct way, has approved the precedents that are already on the books. And so for history buffs, there's been a lot of discussion about former Secretary of War Belknap under the Ulysses Grant administration 140 plus years ago, who was involved in a corruption scheme, knew he was going to be impeached, ran over to the White House, resigned, and then was impeached. And after he left, and the Senate then took up an impeachment trial. So we have that precedent. We have another precedent with Tennessee Senator Blunt from the 1790s. This precedent, I think, establishes the principle that for official conduct of an official that occurred while they were doing their official duties, and in particular here, an impeachment that was returned while the office holder, the president, was still in office, that that conduct remains accountable through an impeachment process, politically accountable. That's what this precedent with a C stands for today. And I think it's important because, as we heard the House managers note, otherwise a president or a bad acting public official could simply resign the moment before the Senate was about to convict and divest the Senate of its jurisdiction to hold somebody politically accountable. And that a system like that creates incentives that would really be harmful to our Republican form of government.
All right. Well, Keir Dougall, the trial is just underway, but it's great to have your analysis as always, Keir Dougall. Thank you.
Elaine, thank you so much.